Chapter 1 of A Fleet in Being. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by David Wales. A Fleet in Being by Rudyard Kipling. Chapter 1. The sailor men that sail upon the seas to fight the wars and keep the laws and live on yellow peas. A Gunroom Ditty Box. G.S. Bowles. Some 30 of Her Majesty's men of war were involved in this matter, say a dozen battleships of the most recent, and 17 or 18 cruisers, but my concern was limited to one of a new type commanded by an old friend. I had some dim knowledge of the interior of a warship, but none of the new world in which I stepped from a Portsmouth wherry one wonderful summer evening in '97. With the exception of the captain, the chief engineer, and maybe a few petty officers, nobody was more than 28 years old. They ranged in the wardroom from this resourceful age to 26 or 7 clear-cut, clean-shaved young faces, with all manner of varied experience behind them. When one comes to think, it is only just that a light 20-knot cruiser should be handled, under guidance of an older head, by affable young gentlemen prepared, even sinfully delighted, to take chances not set down in books. She was new, and they were new. The Admiral was new, and we were all off to the manoeuvres together. 30 keels next day threading their way in and out between 120 moored vessels not so fortunate. We opened the ball, for the benefit of some foreign warships, with a piece of rather pretty steering. A consort was coming up a water lane between 2 lines of shipping just behind us, and we nipped in immediately ahead of her, precisely as a hansom turning out of Bond Street nips in front of a city bus. Distance on water is deceptive, and when I vowed that at one crisis I could have spat on the wicked ram of our next astern, pointed straight at our naked turning side, the wardroom laughed. "Oh, that's nothing," said a gentleman of 22. "Wait till we have to keep station to-night. It's my middle watch." "Close water-tight doors, then," said a sub-lieutenant. "I say," this to the passenger, "if you find a second-class cruiser's ram in the small of your back at midnight, don't be alarmed." Fascinating game of General Post. We were then strung out in a 6-mile line, 30 ships, all heading westwards. As soon as we found room the flagship began to signal, and there followed a most fascinating game of General Post. When I came to know our signalman on the human side, I appreciated it even more. The Admiral wreathed himself with flags, strings of them. The signalman, on our high little, narrow little bridge, telescope jammed to his eye, read out the letters of that order. The quartermaster spun the infantine wheel. The officer of the bridge rumbled requests down the speaking tube to the engine room, and away we fled, to take up station at such and such a distance from our neighbours, ahead and stern, at such and such an angle on the Admiral his bow or beam. The end of it was a miracle to lay eyes. The long line became 4 parallel lines of strength and beauty, a mile and a quarter from flank to flank, and thus we abode till evening. 200 yards or so behind us the ram of our next astern planed through the still water. An equal distance in front of us lay the oily water from the screw of our next ahead. So it was ordered, and so we did, as though glued into position. But our captain took up the parable, and bade me observe how slack we were, by reason of recent festivities, compared to what we should be in a few days. Now we're all over the shop. The ships haven't worked together, and station-keeping isn't as easy as it looks. Later on I found this was perfectly true. A varying strain. One thing more than all the rest impresses the passenger on a Queen's ship. She is seldom for 3 whole hours at the same speed. The liner clear of her dock strikes her pace and holds it to her journey's end. But the man-of-war must always have 2 or 3 knots up her sleeve in case the Admiral demands a spurt. She must also be ready to drop 3 or 4 knots at the wave of a flag. And on occasion she must
Sample complete. Ready to continue?